At Morningstar Sustainalytics, we receive a lot of questions about sustainability-linked second-party opinions. Here's our top 7 frequently asked questions. What are sustainability-linked bonds and loans?
So sustainability-linked bonds and loans, SLBs and SLLs, are debt instruments for general corporate purposes with an aim to improve sustainability performance of the issuer on an entity level. What that means is that issuer of the bond will set forward-looking targets on core and material KPIs, and whether they achieve that target or not will really determine the cost of capital for them. So it's generally done through linking the coupon with the targets, and whether they achieve it or not will set the penalty or the discount for them in future.
What's the difference between use of proceeds and sustainability-linked instruments?
So use of proceeds bond are really about the financing of specific projects and assets, versus linked finance, SLBs and SLLs, are about setting targets on an entity level. So it's really the difference between financing of specific assets that issuer might have on their balance sheet versus setting a target on their entity level.
How does Sustainalytics' opinion differ between use of proceeds and sustainability-linked instruments?
Because of the nature of these two financings being different, we assess the eligibility of projects or assets in case of green social sustainability use of proceeds bond, and around the strength of KPIs and targets, SPTs, for linked finance. And that's how I think it's different, because they follow different principles as well.
Why should an issuer consider getting their sustainability-linked finance framework reviewed by an independent reviewer?
So it's all about the transparency. What independent review does is it brings the credibility in to picture for the investors out there. So we really assess the strength of the KPIs and the targets being set as per the principles, sustainability-linked loan and bond principles. And we talk about any limitations or strength it might have around the transaction. So again, it comes down to the transparency of that transaction. And our SPOs are very much valid for 2 years, which means issuer can go about and have multiple transactions for 2 years before revising their framework later on as per market standards or guidance at that time.
What are the core components of an SLB, SLL as per the ICMA's and LSTA's principles?
In both sustainability-linked loan principles and bond principles, there are 5 components. The first one being the selection of KPI, the second one being the calibration of sustainability performance targets, the SPTs, the third one being loan or bond characteristics, the fourth one being the reporting aspects associated with that transaction, so the disclosure aspect, and the fifth one being the verification. So have you pursued any limited assurance or audits around the transaction?
What are the prerequisites to obtaining a second-party opinion from Sustainalytics?
So because these transactions involve really talking about the KPIs and the targets, it's important for issuers to bring those conversations up front with us as a reviewer, and we'll bring it back to our internal team, the taxonomy team that governs the aspect of any methodological questions or comments they might have. If we think that that transaction is worthy of verification from our perspective or requires further commentary, we'll talk to the issuer, and then we'll bring it forward to our project team who will execute the project. So it comes down to having the right information up front and then bringing it forward to have that discussion.
What sectors are classified as hard to abate sectors? And can they fall within the sphere of sustainable finance portfolios?
Yeah, so hard to abate sectors is an interesting area because there is no universal definition behind that. But generally assume that it is mostly about the carbon intensive nature of operations. So something like steel, cement, aluminum production, oil and gas upstream operations, metals and mining are some of the very common examples of hard to abate sectors. And yes, they can really contribute to sustainable finance, bringing transactions. We have seen lots of transactions actually from issuer in these sectors, especially in linked finance cases where they have material KPIs such as GHG emission and setting targets on that in a forward-looking manner.